Hi, this is John again, the owner and developer of VectorDecks. The next tool we're going to discuss is the VectorDecks Rail tool. You'll find it over here in the tool sets. It's the icon of the little rail. Let's first go ahead and pop the Sundeck frame in. I'm going to use a Vectorworks rectangular tool and then just convert it to a VectorDecks frame. It's much quicker than actually drawing a frame. Now, before we go any further, I want to go over a couple of quick notes. As with all the other VectorDecks tools, it's really a good idea to work with them first in the top plan view. Just kind of speeds things up a little bit. It makes for more accurate placement of some of the objects, and it seems like the snaps work a lot easier. And the second important thing is the rail is a polyline tool, so you'll be clicking and dragging and clicking and dragging, and make sure that's always done in a clockwise direction. It has to do with how I create the math in the plugin to produce that rail, so the outcome is what you're looking for. So clockwise direction is an important part of this. Now let's go ahead and work with that VectorDecks Rail tool. Go ahead and click on it in the tool sets. As I explained, the Rail tool is a polyline tool. I'm going to zoom in to show you it's important on where you're clicking. The Rail tool itself is designed to attach to the inside edge of your frame, your Sundeck frame. It doesn't draw by the center of the rail, it actually draws by the outside edge and face. In this example, you see I have a back plate here, and this is the right side joist. We're going to start that rail right there in that inside corner. And then as we go around, we're going to click at each point that it's going to change a direction, or each corner. If you notice here, I'm drawing clockwise also. It's very important. And then when you get to that last point where you want to finish the rail, go ahead and double click. And just like that, it's going to go ahead and produce that rail. The particular post on this rail is a 4x4, so all the finishes are attached to that inside frame. Now I'm going to show you what happens if you draw it in a counterclockwise direction. Go ahead and delete this rail. And now I'm going to draw another rail, and in a wrong direction, the incorrect direction, a counterclockwise. I'm still snapping to that inside edge of the frame, but because I drew counterclockwise, it didn't produce the rail I expected. It actually drew the rail right over top of the frame, and that's not what we want. So remember, you need to draw that rail and all your rails in that clockwise direction to ensure it's going to be where you're actually going to want that rail to be drawn. Now, even though you finished that rail, you can still make some changes. You could double click on the rail itself. You'll see you'll have some handles that you can drag to a different location. It'll automatically adjust the spaces on your spans on the rail. If you right click on it, you can edit the path. For example, let's do something interesting here. I'm going to go ahead and soften this edge of the rail like we did on that frame. Exit the path. You can see how it put the posts on each corner, and now let's go in and do the same thing to the deck frame. I'm going to right click on it, edit its path, and because I'm doing basically the same exact edit to both of these VectorDecks objects, they know that it needs to attach to that frame where we clicked. Now let's go ahead and select that rail, and in the rail's object information palette you're going to see some edit capabilities and then some that are grayed out. And as I explained with some of the other previous tutorials, with this deck use Sundeck info button checked, and it's always checked by default when you create any of the plugins. It's going to know that it's a child and that it needs to obey any information that the frame, which is the parent, wants it to. So with that checked, draw 3D, display outline, information that is editable on the Sundeck frame is not going to be editable here. So if you turn that off, then you have some of these capabilities available to you. Let's go ahead and leave that on. And then also you notice that the object has a field for a name also, and by default I just had it called Sundeck, and that's the same as default with the frame. If you make any changes to that name in the frame, you want to make sure you change that in the Rails Sundeck name field. These fields that you still have edit capabilities to you they're not in the frame, so they're obvious by what they say, draw beginning post. I'll show you an example here. This is where we started the rail. So by clicking this, it's going to turn off that first post. And in turn, if you click off that ending post, there will be no post drawn at these particular points on the deck. I found myself sometimes having a trellis or something where the rail will attach to that doesn't require that standard traditional rail post. So you can turn those particular posts off. I'll go ahead and turn it back on again. And then this last button has to do with where the rail will turn, whether it be on a 90 degree or an angle. I've found with some octagon shape decks that you sometimes want the post to align itself to the radius of the octagon or the angle. So if you click this on, you'll see the post will turn and give itself an equal exposure to both sides where it's going to attach to. So let's go ahead and turn that back off. Get back out here. Now again, because this is turned on and Draw 3D is turned off here, but at this stage I want to show you how this is all looking in 3D. So we're going to have to go back to that frame and let's click on Draw 3D. It's going to again obey the parent and draw itself in 3D. Let's get a more three-dimensional look to this. Now let's go ahead and select that rail again, and let's turn off those beginning and ending posts. I'll show you that even in 3D it just won't draw the post in the beginning and the end if you don't want them, if they're attached to something other than a rail post. And turn those back on again. And I'm going to get back into top plan view and turn 3D off for now. It's always good to work in top plan and turn 3D off whenever you can. You can always turn it back on again just as easy. It just speeds up the whole process. Now in the next tutorial I'm going to get into depth with respect to all the different rail components, all the different rail parts, and even on the rail itself you're going to have some capabilities of selecting different portions of the rail and doing certain things with it. But we'll cover that in the next tutorial.